At the height of their popularity in the mid-1960s, the Beatles depended heavily upon the technical expertise and studio mastery of engineer George Martin to create all new sounds that had never been experimented with by a mainstream band. It's through Martin's innovative and opportunistic arranging, producing, and sometimes composing that many have found reason to call him the fifth Beatle. However, all was not sunshine and roses. In 1964, John Lennon met Yoko Ono, a freeform artist, at an art gallery, and the two would eventually marry in 1969. Lennon would bring Ono into the studio during Beatles recording sessions, much to the irritation of every other human on Earth, especially George, whose biscuit she stole. Nonetheless, her screeching banshee howl of a voice made its way onto various Beatles records, and for her contributions, some have called Yoko Ono the honorary sixth Beatle. And here in the studio, we call John Lennon the Simpth Beatle. It was not the first time the collective identity of the Beatles had been in question, as there was a popular conspiracy theory that Paul McCartney had passed away on November 9th, 1966, when he was decapitated in a car accident and was replaced in the Beatles lineup by a Scottish orphan named William Shears Campbell. That actually happened. In Beatles records, he's referred to as Billy Shears, but of course it wasn't true. McCartney never died in an automobile accident to be replaced by Billy Shears. It was Billy Joel. Billy Joel quickly noted that there were a lot of people in the band, and that it should rename itself to Army of Beatles to fit the band's large size. But the other Beatles shot down this idea, saying that Army of Roaches sounded much more cool. However, the band name was too ungodly for mass consumption, so in protest, and in memory of what could have been, the Beatles cut their hair in the infamous Roach style. But we're getting off topic. Like the Beatles, Billy Joel would grow in his music to oppose the war in Vietnam, which, to mirror the incredible advancements in music production and technology that the Beatles were making, had just the same advancements in modern weaponry, such as the M1919 Browning machine gun developed by legendary firearms pioneer John Browning, which is a shame because he's the eighth Beatle. The Beatles got high in LA and named Joe Pesci the ninth Beatle, but assigning Beatleship to people willy-nilly was offensive to genuine musical talents like Elvis Presley, who demanded to be appointed Beatlehood himself. In the spring of 1970, the Beatles granted his wish. However, with these 4 consecutive additions of Americans, the original Beatles felt that they had lost their British identity, so amidst a fit of patriotic fervour, in an effort to reclaim their proud heritage as Englishmen, they named the 11th Beatle as the Old Bailey. However, the Beatles couldn't run from the fact that there was simply a larger market in America, and by far the biggest name they had yet to sign was Kurt Cobain. So, 2 months later, they named Kurt Cobain the 12th and 13th Beatle in an effort to expand their consumer pool further into America. However, when Kurt Cobain passed away in 1994, bandmate Dave Grohl stepped into his place, and the role of the 12th Beatle was retired, and Cobain was immortally memorialized as a gold-plated doobie. Around this time, former Beatles drummer Pete Best demanded that he be made an honorary Beatle for his early contributions to the Beatles act. But the Beatles were feeling cheeky, so they cut off Pete Best's best drumming leg, and out of pure spite, made it the 14th Beatle. John Lennon made his fabled Flaming Pie Man the 15th Beatle as an homage, before making himself the 16th Beatle while tripping acid. Turning to LSD in the late 60s, the Beatles thought that their hallucinations seemed a bit like Tim Burton movies, so they made him Beatle 17. They saw his Batman, threw their popcorn at the screen in anger, and made George Clooney Beatle 18. By this point, the Beatles were so popular that the leader of the free world himself, John F. Kennedy, could not resist asking to become a member of the Beatles. They obliged. But shockingly, he was assassinated by Marilyn Monroe at the behest of a strange man named Joe DiMaggio, which ended up being just an alias for Joe Pesci, the 9th Beatle. Pesci, at only 5'4", was a member of the notorious Lollipop Guild from The Wizard of Oz, the wizard himself being Frank Oz, the puppeteer and voice of Yoda in Star Wars. But we're getting off topic. Did you know that you can sync up The Wizard of Oz with the song Toto by Africa? Most people don't know this, but Africa was invaded by its rival band Europe out of jealousy. Who else commandeered this invasion but Benito Mussolini? He wanted to go himself because Africa had just stolen the letter I from the alphabet, leaving him phonetically crippled. Without the I, he was just bento. Upset at their own folly, Africa split in half along the Missouri Compromise to form Africa's Major and Minor. To bring an end to the conflict, Africa Major forcibly conquered Minor to reunite the continent at the historic site of Little Bighorn. Due to the unbearable heat of the African desert, this conflict would become known as the Cold War. It was around this time that J. Robert Oppenheimer, the 20th Beatle, developed the atomic bomb, reacting to its first successful test with the immortal quote, "Bro, did you just post cringe?" which is actually a misquote from 1492, when Ferdinand Magellan discovered dinosaurs. In that year, something slightly similar had been said by, you guessed it, Johnny Appleseed. After planting that first apple tree, he is thought to have famously said, "Now we are all sons of bitches." The words alone weren't very epic though, so world-famous musician Hans Zimmer put them to music. Not Hans, Hands. But Hans Zimmer's intellectual property was negotiated away after his suspicious death by his long-estranged communist brother Fritz Homme, who crowned himself the 21st Beatle, thus getting blackjack and getting filthy rich. With the ascendance of the master blackmailer Fritz Homme, the Beatles went into hiding during what is known as the Wilderness Years. From the shadows they named Hotel California the 22nd Beatle, Hotel California being their worst-selling single of their collective careers. Lennon was murdered in 1980, and the Beatles planned to make him the 23rd Beatle in memory of him, but they accidentally wrote down the wrong name from the police report, inadvertently giving the title of 23rd Beatle to his murderer, Mark David Chapman. Yoko Ono naturally blamed Julian Lennon, John's only son from his previous marriage, and made sure that the little dweeb never got his father's fame. So out of hatred for the little shit, she declared the 25th Beatle not Julian Lennon. The Wilderness Years continued, as the Beatles drifted apart, forming their own creative projects and occasionally trying and failing to recapture their old magic by appointing a big-name celebrity as the next Beatle. But nothing worked, and they ended up driving each other apart even more. The most recent addition to the now irrelevant superstar group is Grimace, or it was going to be. But being a purple man, he was killed one day outside of a strip club by none other than the flying purple people eater. The position of 30th Beatle was eventually sold to Tesla. And that sums up the current state of the history of the Beatles.
Now it looks as though they're here to stay. Oh, I believe in yesterday.